who are, a mile wide and an inch deep. Or they have overlearned social interaction scripts. How are you today? I'm really good. How are you? Good. What'd you do? I did this. And then you ask the next level of depth and they're like, what? But the problem is they have these series of overlearned scripts that are just sitting up in their long-term memory that they can vomit out at the moment's notice. And that's where a lot of time we spend a lot of time with natural supports, because they'll say, oh no, he knows what he's supposed to. No. He's just got these do loops. And he's repeating these do loops because he's getting the stimulus for that and he's responding to that. But his depth of understanding, so we have to test, is this really an understanding or not? So again, how is it that we're organizing ourselves thinking about those? How can we be therapeutic and forget about therapy? As you know, as people have more and more behavioral difficulties over the course of their lives, we had one young person that I actually knew. I've now known David for almost 30 years. I knew him when he was 8. He came into an acute rehab hospital where I was involved. He had had very severe behavior problems post-brain injury. We did a little analysis, and 5 years ago I just got re-involved in his life because his life is flying apart. And we just now counted all the therapeutic staff that have been involved in his life over 30, anyone guess? Over 30 years, 24 years. 200 and something. 200 people giving him therapy. How do you think he feels about us losers? You're just the next one coming in here telling me you're going to do this. Or therapy is, okay, now we're going to come and I'm here to be, no, we need to be therapeutic and not worry about therapy. We all know that we live in these little boxes. They're time boxes, they're duration boxes that we have to live within. But the question is going to be, how do I take advantage of that time? If you are working in an acute rehab hospital, you know what you are? A table setter. That's it. That's all you want. Now, it's beautiful, you're wonderful, don't you ever change, kumbaya, all that stuff. You're valued for a very brief period of time. Acute, inpatient rehab, all you're doing is establishing a baseline. That's all. And I'm talking about people that may be in your program for a year and two. What's the average lifespan of an Australian male?
83.
83. If you're in a treatment program for a year, that is 1/83 of your life. You have much more interaction with the world around you. So the best thing we can do is prepare that world and to prepare you to be in that world. That means we have to move away from a hierarchical logic, which is you have to be able to do this before you can do that. No, not necessarily. Most learning, by the way, is not hierarchical. It's not. In the late 19th and early 20th century, everybody loved those kind of approaches that you had, like, Piagetian stages, and then Freud had his stages, and then you have, Maslow, and the hierarchy. It's all crap. We can move up and down those stages, every one of us, in the course of a day. It's depending on our mood, it depends on who we're surrounded with, it depends on our motivation. So the notion that we achieve a step, that we can say we've got it, and then we go to the next one, is crap. So what we need to do is figure out what are the contexts in which this person is most likely going to need those skills and build around those. It's amazing. I mean, back in the olden days when we were working inpatient rehab, we had a pediatric program. And so we would get a school, and we were working with kids in school. And we had 3 kids in the course of a number of years who could not do simple arithmetical reasoning, right? Say, oh, they can't do math. Could do high-order algebra. No, you can't. Yes, they could. But if you said, what's 23 plus 17 minus 10? But if you said, train leaves Chicago, going towards New York at 150 miles an hour, and a train for where they boom, done. So hierarchical is dangerous. Now, don't get me wrong, by the way, there are some things that are hierarchical, but not a lot. So therapeutic is figuring out in your life, therapy is you come to me or you come to my treatment. What's the short-term goal and what's the long-term goal? The short-term goal is what are you going to do for the next half hour, 25 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour and a half that we're together. what is the valued outcome for me being here as part of your life? And I cannot say having people like show up on their doorstep and I say, so, I'm here to try to help them. They go, leave me alone. Okay? But if you can come up with a value, I'm going to be here, I could have like an hour and a half or so and something like that. What will make my life better? Get the hell out of here. Bye. Because if he doesn't want my help, who am I? We only help when we're asked. We are an opportunity. We want people to take advantage of that opportunity. And sometimes you go back the fourth and the fifth and the sixth time. Sometimes you never go back. Hey, what's interesting, sometimes you go back and people's lives turn out pretty okay. Because they determine what is a valuable life to them. It may not mirror what I think is a valuable life. But if you really like living in your trailer, shooting varmints, which we had a guy in upstate New York, no running water, no toilet, living in a trailer that had no electricity, anything like that, and he's the happiest guy I know. He shoots his dinner. He would like to work on the women thing. But he said about it, can't get no bitch, I'll be fine. I don't want to know how his needs met, but I'm sure he calls varmints, but I'm not. But you know what? We say, oh, no, don't you want to be involved? He's genuinely a happy person. Time for us to move on. But we define it often by sort of a cultural norm of what is success or what is good. Your long-term goal is yours, not mine. Is this a me problem, a you problem, or a we problem? Often what happens is we work with a lot of people that are happy to make a me problem a you problem. And because we're all a bunch of freaking alcoholics, we accept their invitation. So we spend a lot of time when somebody says, we talk to staff, we spend a lot of time talking to them. When a guy calls and says, I just want you to know I'm in trouble because I didn't get my meds and I'm out of meds. What's the human service response? Let me ring up the pharmacy and I'll talk to your doctor. In fact, we did a little sort of internal study of that, and we found that 85%, it was 80-something, it's like 86 point, whatever it was, service coordinators, people who were responsible for helping people, care managers and stuff, responded by saying, I'll take care of it. So we spent a whole bunch of time saying, no, here's your response. Boy, do you have a plan? What do you mean, do you have a plan? Do you have a plan? You got to get your meds. I'm calling you. No, that's not a plan. What's your plan? Can you call the doctor? Can you call the doctor? And a lot of times people get agreed, because you know what happens when you start shifting that to the individuals that we're supposed to be helping, they get agreed. You're supposed to take care of this. You know why. I know why you're here. You're here for the money. Earn your money. I'm here to try to help, and sometimes help doesn't move like the way you think it looks. You have a problem with your meds. How can you get them? If you can't get there, I'll help you arrange transportation. But what happens when you get the guy his meds? He's just learned that you will get me my meds. So, it's the equivalent of when I got married by the priest that married my parents. He was 100 years old when he married them, he was 190 years old when he married us. So he's a priest, he doesn't know jack about anything, but we're Catholic, so we Catholics, we have all these crazy rituals. Anybody who's not Catholic will show you the super secret handshake later. But it's a whole bunch of things. Anyway, back in the old days when I got married, you had to go into the priest and he used to tell you what was the woman's responsibility. And as I always try to remind my wife, she was supposed to do what the husband asked of her. She has not agreed with that in any part of our lives together. I try every once in a while. But anyway, so what happens is I go in and I talk to the priest he talks to her and she comes out, she is spitting at her. And I go in and he does all this stuff what you're supposed to do as a husband and stuff. And he says, Timothy, I just want you to know this. One other thing I want to tell you, he said, and I want you to remember this for the rest of your life. This is really great advice. He said, you're going to go off with your lovely wife, and you're going to have a honeymoon. You're going to come back, and when you come back, she's going to make you breakfast, which I was like, yeah, right. But he's a priest. What does he know? And he says, when your lovely wife makes you your breakfast, she's going to make you eggs and sausage and all, and she's going to make you toast. And when she makes the toast and she brings the toast out, if the toast is burned, you better tell her the toast is burned or you'll be eating burned toast for the rest of your life. Isn't that great advice? Think about that. It is great advice. It's the same thing. Once you get the guy's meds, or you do this, he's going to expect not just you, but after you are but a bitter memory, the next person, whether it's his daughter, wife, husband, whatever, to do that for him. So the idea is this is a me problem. Sometimes it's a you problem. I'm fine, you got the problem. And sometimes it's a we problem. So we got to work really hard. We spend a lot of time, especially with natural supports, and especially at the level of carers, helping people understand you problem, me problem, we problem. Don't make a me problem into a we problem. So, 6 general categories of questions. Does this make sense? That's basically a framework. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see a common sense? Simple? Hard. Hard. Because what it requires is, essentially, we talk about people with traumatic brain injury, especially people with frontal lobe injury, especially people with behavioral difficulties. They have poor executive functions, their metacognition, their theory of mind is off, and the reality is, most of the people that work with those people have the same problem. They're terrible at executive functions. Their theory of mind sucks. They can't put themselves in somebody else's shoes. So we spend a lot of time trying to help people just how to be, reasonable. And that's pretty much our standard. Reasonable. We know, by the way, what do we know? Life is messy. We know that some people are better than others. We know that there are some people who are more motivated than others. What we want to try to do is figure out what can we do to give a level of competence. And then try to figure out who's more competent than others. But the idea is, how do we create networks of support? What the reality is that they're not a whole bunch of highly trained people. You know what we've also learned? Is by engendering and engaging that network of support early and often, the outcomes are better. Because it shifts the focus from clinician to where it belongs, which is out there. And what it means is that we have to shift our way of looking at our own self-image. I am not a person that you come to when I give you treatment. I am a person that helps coach you in the context of your life. Because what really matters, the difficulties that result post-injury are context-bound. You can have people that do really well in a very well-controlled environment. We had a neurobehavior project for 20 years, which was basically the entire state of New York, anybody with a traumatic brain injury behavior problem, we served them. And there was 4 of us for an entire state. And what we learned pretty quickly, the population of New York was 17 million. The number of people with traumatic brain injury was something along the lines of 100 and some thousand. If you had a behavior problem, and at one point the number was somewhere in the range of 5,000. 4 people. We were stupid. But what did we learn? We were wasting our time by creating intervention strategies that were dependent upon us. We had to go find the people that were going to be interested. So I always tell the story of getting involved with the Hells Angels. They're a motorcycle group, a fraternal order. I don't know, maybe you've heard of them? We had a guy with a brain injury, got his brain injury on a motorcycle. We weren't going to have a bunch of young OTs and physios working with him. We had to help his Hells Angels friends figure out how. They were not highly motivated at first. But we said, if we can help you help him, he's not going to kill somebody. We're in. And that's what we need to do, spend our time. That's where our time is best spent. And then our job is coaching them on how to do this stuff. And by the way, getting coached from them about knowing the culture. There is a deep and clear culture in the Hells Angels. And you got to learn it if you're going to survive. But you got to learn it because by learning it, you don't get caught in the trap of, well, I'm an expert in this. Here's what I know. I know a little bit about brains. That's it. I'm a schmo. We're a bunch of schmoes trying to make our way. I think, again, it's that sort of trying to make it simple, but recognizing it's not easy. So again, that is a sort of the questions that we ask as part of this framework. So there's these parallel processes that go on when we start thinking about supporting people who struggle. There is not, so parallel processes, you have the person with a brain injury and his or her family, and there's a parallel process, and that is the people that are supposed to be supporting them, people like us. First, what do we need to know? That an event or an activity will be difficult. If I'm going to be successful in the long run, I got to know this is going to be hard. Where do you see much of the behavioral difficulties for people? We published on this kind of stuff. And basically what we found is that we had a whole bunch of people that thought things were going to be easy when they were really hard, and their expectation of ease created all kinds of difficulty. So now it's the conundrum of brain injury. Once you get past the physical stigmata, so I don't have a brain injury anymore because I can walk and I can move these things. I just got a scar, but I can have the hair grow over it, so I'm done with that. And the reality is that with that comes an we overshoot our understanding of ourselves. So it's like Jenny was saying, there's the old me. There's a great, what's called, that, you ever notice the older you get, that the background was much, your past was so much more glorious? I have a running shirt a friend of mine gave me that says, on the front it says, the older I get, and on the back it says, the better I was. That's human nature. But again, we retreat, and so we average that people that overshoot, so they think, oh, I could do that before, now I can, and they can't. And often the first response to that is what? Complete lack of understanding, complete lack of insight, so you keep making the same mistake over and over and over again. You don't have the cold, you don't have the intellectual understanding of it, but you understand that something's wrong. You can't understand why you don't have any friends. You can't understand why you got fired from your 37th job. Because I am what? No. So the notion here is, what is it that it is, what is it I'm doing, and is it going to be hard or easy? So we spend a lot of time with that simple concept. Before we start, we have to make a decision. It's going to be hard or easy. Establish a reasonable goal. What are we going to try to accomplish in the next hour? What are we going to try to accomplish in the next 2 hours? What are we going to try to accomplish in the next week? By reasonable, it is not, you have to be realistic. Reasonable is, we don't have this much time. What's a reasonable outcome? Your life is not going to change based on the fact that you see me 3 days a week for an hour and a half. Your life is not going to change based on your commitment to your change. Anybody go to NA and AA? Everybody who works in human services should go to an open NA or AA meeting at one point in their life. They're interested. They're an anthropologist's dream. But I work with a lot of people who go to them, so I go to them all the time, and many times I lie, because when you go to a closed meeting, you're supposed to, and I'm telling you, I've even told people in AA, I'm Tim, and I've been clean for 54 years. I'm not really lying, because you're supposed to be now. I'm not an addict, thankfully. Well, one of the things, I was at a closed meeting, and this one guy said it best. It was a guy who had a long history, and he had his arrest record, and it was like out the door. And he said, at this point I was a victim, at this point I was a victim, at this point I was a victim, at this point I did this, and the cops screwed me here, and all this other kind of stuff. But he said, you know when it ended? When I finally realized this. You can't talk your way into stuff you behaved your way into. And that's a conversation that we have with people. It's not what you say, it's what you do. You are not an accumulation of what you say, you are an accumulation of what you've done. And so we spend a lot of time trying to help people understand by what's a reasonable goal, and what's the plan, so that it's reasonable to expect this, it's unrealistic, and it's unrealistic in the moment. Or even then, we've had people say, no, I want to go, okay, let's try it. The idea is we're going to try stuff to try to get to a goal. We want it to be as reasonable as possible. Even if I don't agree, it's your life, it's not mine to figure it out. We'll have to figure it out. What did we learn? Formulate a plan, understand it at the very least, initiate behavior. That's another thing we see a lot of people have a hard time. So they'll tell you what they're supposed to do, and they'll do it under prosthetic initiators. But in absence of those prosthetic initiators, oh, by the way, it's a can't do. Some can't do people who have initiation impairment, what does that mean? They're probably going to have it for the rest of their lives. So what we need to do is build in some kind of kick in the ass strategy. And we've had plans that are, Molly kicks me in the ass. And we had one guy, that's what it was. He had her all over his house. Molly will kick me in the ass, that's a good thing. Because, he didn't understand it. He didn't ever really understood it, but he understood that Molly was really motivated and was really committed to him, and that she wouldn't kick him in the ass just because she was a bitch, but because she knew he couldn't get himself moving. So we talked about how do we manage those kind of things. So what is it, so what is the idea? Initiate. If you can't, what are you doing to make it happen? If to refrain from actions that interfere with the successful stuff so you don't go in the other direction, then what do we get? A lot of that happens is we lose the focus, we lose what are we trying to accomplish here, and we go in a different direction because it's interesting. And we do that, we think it's very interesting, but the reality is we set people up for problems because we're not staying focused on what is the achievable, desirable outcome. That's a big issue for a lot of folks who go back into inpatient, or even if they're in like a partial hospitalization program, they go back in. What happens is they go to those places and they, people are lovely, but they say, I don't know what I'm getting out of this. I still don't have my license. I still don't have my job. I'm sick and tired of this. Why do I have to keep coming back here? No, we're working on it. We're working on pre-vocational skills. There's a famous guy in the States named Lou Brown. Talks about pre-vocation. You know what pre means? Never. By the way, one of the things, people talk about getting jobs, I'm going to tell you right now, you want to reduce the number of behavior problems? Let them go get a job. Any fucking job they want. And then, okay, so what we're doing is we're doing a job trial. How long do you think you can make it this time? I'm going to be working there for the rest of my life. That's your theory. My theory is a week. But let's go try it. And then after you get fired, let's sit down and say, what'd you learn? Authentic, responsible feedback. Because otherwise, what are we? We're the people who stop you. No, you're not ready for a job. How do you know? I cannot tell you how many guys I was like, never going to happen. Greatest example ever. Guy named Jim that we worked with. 6'7", towering man, lovely man. But wanted a job. So, but he was one of those guys, bilateral frontal lobe injury. But he wasn't nasty. He was like over, like he just didn't get this, his social cognition sucked. So he'd be like, how are you doing? You're really, you look lovely today. I really, something. And he didn't mean it in a way to like, it's not like he was trying to grab your boob. He was just saying, oh my God, I love those fake curls that you're wearing. They're beautiful. It's all like your hair is beautiful, and your dress and all this other kind of stuff. And what would happen? He would go, oh my God. And then the other thing is because he wanted his friends so much, he was really into it. So we were like, okay, let's try a job. And so we stupidly got him a job as a guy who did all of the laundry in a hotel. Bad move, right? Come on. Okay, so he's got the thing, and he's got this, so he sees a woman going in a room. Hey, don't you look good? You like this room? I hope you like this room. Walking in a room with a guest. And he gets like way too close, and he's like, that's right, you're like, oh, leave me alone. He's like, I don't mean any harm. I wouldn't, again, because if it's here, it's here. I'm not going to rape you. I'm not. I have no intention of raping you. Fired. Now, all the people that are the pre people, all said, oh, see, you fucked up, Tim. No, guy can't ever have a job. So we're thinking, like, what the heck can we do? Wanted a job, so sit down and say, what'd you learn? I learned that women are complicated. Women are complicated. Well, what'd you learn through your job? I gotta be careful, I gotta do this stuff, people don't understand. I have to spend more time helping people get familiar with me. Okay. So we're back and we're going this stuff. But he is a lovely man. He is. Has no concept. To this day, has no concept. So we're thinking, and then somebody comes up with the idea, greeter at Walmart. So you say, well, you like to work at Walmart. We may be able to get your job as a greeter. He's like, sure. So he and I go to the boss, and and he's like, yeah, we need greeters. Now, greeters, you know what greeters are. They're the guys who try to stop you from stealing things, but they make you think like, they care. Hi, welcome to Walmart and all that kind of stuff. Well, so we're thinking about this, and we're talking to the guy like, we're a little concerned, but we'd like to try it, and we'll make sure that nobody gets killed, or we'll accept liability, and all that kind of thing. And the manager was listening to us, and he was asking me a whole bunch of questions. I didn't even think about it. So, like a week later, he starts. And we get there, and the manager had taped a box on the floor and said, "That's the greeter's box. The greeter stays in the box." He was like, "Okay." Welcome to Walmart. Did you walk in? I hope you have a good time. Welcome to Walmart. It's really good to see you. And it never goes outside the box. It was sad. There was like this in the town he lived in. He still lived there. There was like these sad old people that they were like rats figuring out a maze. So they realized if he's in the box, he'll still talk to me. They'd go stand in the box with him. And he would be like, "Oh, you're the manager," and he had Jed and all this other guy. "Oh," and like the manager would be like, "Yeah, go buy something, please." Now, great outcome, right? Yes. What happened next? Employee of the month. What happened next? He got a promotion. And so now he had a cart to bring things around, so he would stalk people through Walmart. What did we learn? In the box. If you go to Walmart in Tycon Row in New York, you will see Jim, the greatest Walmart greeter in the world, in his box. If we hadn't done that, what would have happened? We'd still be in this pre-voc treatment program. And if we had tried the one job, and it blew up the way it blew up, what is the typical response? Risk, liability, risk, can't do it. We learned something. He learned. It's hard. I gotta have an idea. I gotta do what I'm supposed to do. I can't do what I'm not supposed to do, and I gotta keep doing it. How am I doing? Because his boss was really good at giving the feedback on those kind of things. So again, if we're going to be successful, we have to have this way of thinking about lives. So it's a parallel, us with the individual. So we're thinking with and for and around people. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions, comments, questions about it? What's that? Yeah. Nobody's got anything, huh? Just one smart ass. Well, there you go. Congratulations. Is it like, I know Australians are like, fake pleasant. I've been here enough to know how you people operate. You'll wait until you get out there and you go, "Oh my God." He's a Micah. Thank you for your pity.
One question.
You can wait till the microphone comes to you.
No,
That's all right. I just was going to say, how do you bring the employers to come along and accept that risk?
Oh, a great question. A hard one that I will not answer. No, think about it. What it requires is a lot of spade work ahead of time. What it requires, because I think that the mistake I think that we make is we think that our job is we're going to be therapeutic is in this realm. And the reality is we're really coaches in life, so it doesn't matter if you're OTP. So in the case of Walmart, remember what I said? I went with Jim. So I called the guy first. By the way, I did the same thing at the Marriott. So part of the deal was there is a little bit of matching that goes on to those kind of things. And what we found is, what's interesting is in the service industry, they're so desperate for people. If you go in and say, "Look, here's the deal. We want you to try. We want to try this. This could be a job try." And we often talk to people, we'd like to do a job try. What we often say to people is that we're not going to put anybody in a situation we have to worry about harm. We also do shared liability. So we say if this guy goes there on our say-so, we have as much. So if something bad happens, now if he has an accident and stuff like that, there's this stuff that goes up with having an accident. Some managers are so scared to death they hear somebody with a brain injury. They go, because they're going to be more. I can't remember. I cannot tell you how many times. Like, is he going to have a seizure? No. No. So he's gonna have a fit, right? No. And you know, what do you know? And if you're sitting with a person, they're hearing that kind of stuff, it's amazing what people will say. Some small percentage of people say, well, I can still do it, but most people say, fuck that. So as much of the job is creating those networks, and we spend a lot of time doing those kind of things. One of the things is for people that can work, we'll try to get them in volunteer situations. One of the programs that we have right now was based on a program that we had before. We have a bunch of guys that go volunteer around the McDonald's house. And these are a bunch of very, very difficult guys that go around the McDonald's house. The context is so different and so clear. They're tremendous.